Hello and welcome to Lost in the Labyrinth podcast episode number one. You will have caught even, can't even speak today, caught our introduction. So please go and check that out. And I'm your host with my colleague and business partner in crime, Jen, and I'm Em. So welcome today, and we're going to be talking all things about our journey and what happened, for the two of us, the good things, the bad things, and some of the ugly things, but with the honest things as well, which a lot of mums don't feel that they can talk about. And that is the biggest thing that we want to put across, is that it's okay and it's really safe for you to come into our world, Lost in the Labyrinth, and join our community on Facebook if you haven't done already. But you can come into our world and be honest, and that is all we want to do. Create support, come and rant, come and share, and basically learn the things that we've learned to be able for us to start to look at escaping the labyrinth that is motherhood. So I don't know whether you want to go first, Jen, and talk a little bit about your experiences as I've just rambled on.
Yeah, happy to. Give yourself like a couple of minute break, put your teeth in. So I'm Jen, and I started Motherhood and the idea of being lost in the labyrinth of motherhood. Because I guess when I started talking to other mums, I noticed that my experience, or certainly elements of my experience, were popping up again and again with different people if they were happy to open up and talk about them. So I have one daughter, she's 4. I had a really traumatic time with her. Actually had a planned C-section because she was quite poorly. So although she was term, she went off to special care. We didn't have a great postnatal experience. My experience of hospital wasn't fantastic. We had some quite negligent care that landed her in special care, probably unnecessarily. And then that kind of like whitewashing, I guess, that like, oh, we've done a thing that's not great, so what we're going to do is just like pretend it's all fine, and put it all onto you as the mum, and make you feel bad about your experience and for kicking up a fuss because it's inconvenient for us. And I think for anyone who's had like a poorly baby, whether it's through like a special care experience or whether it's through disability or birth trauma or whatever it is, I think what really surprised me was just how taboo that is for people, because it didn't come up for me in life before. Like, I've had different like injuries and like fallen over on a slippery floor, like really hurt myself, or like it's like tripped over my own feet, like that kind of person, and ended up like having surgeries or being poorly or being in hospital or whatever. That's not taboo. It's not taboo to say, well, I fell over and break my foot or hurt my knee or whatever, and I need this and this support. But somehow when you're having major abdominal surgery and you've got a baby that's really poorly and you're having a really traumatic experience, because you've latched motherhood onto it, well, now suddenly it's all taboo and we shouldn't talk about it because you're like #so blessed, despite the fact that you're like in pain and like shuffling around and really quite traumatized by everything. Well, no, we can't talk about it because you're so blessed and someone else might not be, so like don't talk about it. It's really interesting, I think.
It is because I think as soon as like you say, the word mother gets latched onto anything, it's like there's an expectation, a social expectation mostly, of what we believe motherhood to be like. And for some people it is all singing, all dancing. It's an amazing experience. They absolutely have the time of their lives. But for others it's not. And it's okay. I think this is where the taboo comes in, because we just want to plant the seed and show this scenario that motherhood is just this wonderful thing. And as much as it is, and we are blessed to have our children, and there are many people in this world that can't, hand on heart, like I will never ever not know what that feels like. But you still need to be able to talk about when it's really painful, when you have experienced something really quite tragic and terrible. I mean, I had the worst pregnancy. I put on 6.5 stone. I couldn't walk. I wore 90p flip-flops out of Primark because it was all I could get my feet in. I was from 28 weeks measuring 32. Lacey was £10.3,
Wow.
and it's like I had her by emergency C-section, and it's traumatic. It's so traumatic. And birthing is traumatic and a trauma on your body
Mhm.
anyway, but they never explain it to or put that expectation on it. So you are just walking in blind. I felt blinded because I was like, what is all of this? And even though you have, you know, your breathing groups, it's all just lovely and airy fairy. No one's really being like, yeah, this could be quite tragic or awful in some sense. And I think it just needs to be spoken about more and more, because when I got handed my baby onto my chest, I asked for her to be taken away. Like, I've wanted to be a mum my whole life. And I was like, I've, wanted that family union and to have a baby, but I was just like, get her off me. I'd done 16 hours of labour. I was exhausted. I didn't know where I was. I had an emergency C-section. I remember the doctors being like, she's lost a lot of blood. And I think I lost a litre of blood. And I just heard this like awfulness in that theatre room, and it was just scary. I've never been so scared in my life. And then it just was like, right, well, now I've just got to be, I'm not me anymore, and I've got to be this mum, and I don't even know what I'm doing now. And it just stemmed from there, and I got into this really nasty cycle of mind torture that I took myself down to then not be able to function properly as a mum or as a human being, as Emma. And it just was had a knock-on effect, really. And I think it's sad. It's sad when you sit there and hear so many stories, and mums are so scared and afraid to talk about it and come forward and say, actually, no, do you know what? I felt like shit too, and I really didn't enjoy it. So what we're doing, obviously, we're a huge advocate for anyway. So we would love to know about your story. So come and tell us inside the group and talk about your experiences and what you have gone through and, experienced in the world of care that's not caring.
Yeah, lack of support
Yeah.
comes into that taboo so much, right? Because if it's anything else, like I remember saying at the time, if I've been through something else traumatic, like a horrible car accident or, whatever, where I was injured and I'd had surgery and I'd had a traumatic time and I'd felt quite traumatized, I would expect there to be support there. I would expect that someone would say, like, Jen, have you had like some counseling about this? Like, are you getting the support that you need? Or you might feel this, and this because you've been through a trauma. Whereas because I'd had a baby, it was almost like my trauma was suddenly obsolete.
Mm.
And I was just expected to like, well, just close that down. It's totally healthy. Like, we know closing down trauma, you'll just be fine. Just like power through.
Box it.
All good. Yeah, box it. Because your trauma doesn't exist because you've got a baby now. And of course, we know that doesn't work for mums, right? They just carry that trauma with them anyway because it's not being dealt with. And then they feel crappy about carrying the trauma because they're told, well, you shouldn't have trauma because you have a baby. And it just means the support isn't there. And I just think it's just such a load of like BS. Like, I remember calling one of my friends on that BS and being like, you didn't support me. Like, you didn't even ask what was going on. I told you my baby's in special care. She's really poorly. Like, we don't know if we're going to be bringing her home or not. And you just shut down because it's difficult for you to deal with that. You weren't there. And her response was like, well, we didn't know you needed support because you're such a like strong person and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, BS, BS, babe, because I tell you I've got a poorly baby. I tell you I'm stuck in hospital. I tell you I've had surgery. I don't need to follow that with the words, I need help.
Yeah.
Because if I'd said,
I'm screaming.
like, I've had a car crash, I'm stuck in hospital, I've had surgery, you wouldn't need to be told I needed support. That's just being a friend, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. And I think for me, like, when I first went home, so I was in hospital for 4 days before having her. Then I was in for 7 days because of infection and stuff like that. So we spent nearly 10 days in hospital, and by the time I'd come home, I'd been given all this medication, and my ex had wrote out this plan like of all this medication that I needed to take. And I remember walking to the shops 3 days after like being home. So I'm what, 8-9 days into my my C-section recovery, and I'm taking all this medication, and I've got the pram, and I'm like la 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 la, and I'm in my own little world. But my midwife came around and she was like, why are you walking and pushing prams? I was like, well, I feel fine. Turns out the care that they'd given me and told us to create a plan around my medication, I was on the full dose of everything. So I was literally whacked out of my off
You're
my
loving
face
life.
on medication. So no wonder I didn't feel anything, but I could have done myself a terrible mystery. And I've been taking that from day one, so it was like, right, well, where's the care and attention around that? Then I go to the toilet, and I remember throwing my a party. I threw a party a week later for my other half's birthday, and my daughter, the arrival of, I had everybody round, I had Marky up in the garden. Like, I was like, what am I doing? And I was just like, Emma's mask went on, and I called
Yeah.
it my mum mask. I've always called it my mum mask, and I've shared this before in some of the other stuff that I've done. But my mum mask went on, and I was like, no, I've got this. I'm cool. I'm all right. And everything got suppressed, and everybody else just thought I was doing fine. I had my moments, but I was so depressed. I've never felt depression like it, like to the point I just wanted to curl up in a ball and die. That's how bad I felt. And I didn't want to go out the house. I had anxiety, and it just got worse and worse and built up. I was spaced off my face the first few times I went out, but it just, nobody noticed. And then when I went to the doctors, they were like, well, here's some tablets, take some more pills and you'll feel better. And I was like, no, I don't feel better. I'm not feeling anything now. Now I feel bloody numb. Like, I have no feelings at all. And then, yeah, obviously my journey carried on, and I spent, got to the point where, found solace in a bottle of wine in the evening to try and drown out the fact that I was just going slowly insane, is what it felt like. And then I got to the point where I was just like, that enough is enough. Like, there's got to be another way for this. And for me, I found, a mums in business group, and I went along to that meeting and came across the law of attraction practitioner, get my teeth back in. And that's where my journey then started of personal development and self-discovery, and being able to control and regulate my own thought process, because my thoughts were becoming so dark and really not healthy at all. But I knew that the medication I was on, the doctors I'd spoken to, they'd not put me forward for any counselling or trauma relief or anything like that. So I knew I just had to do this on my own. And that's where I went on this massive journey. And it's transformed my life. Like, I'm a completely different person to the person I was even before I had Lacey, but so much better for it. Like, I can't tell you how much it has done good for both me and my daughter. And I think if mums just only knew that they had and held so much power within them, they literally can transform their lives if they choose to and want to. And I think I just got to the point where I was like, enough is enough. I'm either going to end up not seeing my daughter's next birthday because I'm going to drink myself into a stupor, or I'm going to go crazy and I'm going to be locked up. That's how I felt about myself. So then to find all of that and then be like, right, I can actually do something about this now, off I went. And obviously, things have developed. We're now in the motherhood to be able to give this back to women, because in our eyes, this is exactly what's needed. This is the support that should be given to mums when they first fall pregnant. This is the support that should be given to them for the whole 9 months of their pregnancy, when they're struggling. Their bodies are changing. They feel like crap about themselves. They don't look in the mirror and they already start to not recognize who they're looking at. They're not on this journey and in enjoyment, because I was not in a place of enjoyment. Everything was a struggle. Everything became hard. But I had previous conditioning that made me that way, and in that thought process in the first place, and an expectation of what motherhood should be.
That gave you that taboo. And one of the things that I found so interesting is that suffering, that like point that you get to where you are so numb to everything because of your trauma or because you're being medicated, that's really taboo. And that makes it worse. Like, I remember kind of like disclosing to one friend, like, sometimes I feel nothing. Like, I've been told by a therapist that I've got emotional numbness and I need to build myself up from the ground up by just really starting to identify what feels good for me and what feels bad for me, because I've put myself so in a box of having to have the mum mask, love that term, that actually you get back to nothing. And she couldn't deal with it. Her face was a picture, and you know, she actually hasn't reached out to me again. It's been so traumatic for her to think that, like, oh my God, like sometimes you know, you feel a bit numb. Like,
I think that
oh, taboo.
I remember someone saying to me, "You've got everything you've ever wanted. You have everything you've ever wanted. Why are you not happy?" And I was like, I actually don't know. I don't know. I sit
Mhm.
here and I look and I know I've got everything that I wanted, but my mind is taking me away on this tangent, and I'm down this hole now, so far down it that I just can't even scrape my way back out, and I don't
Yeah,
know how, because nobody was saying to me. Everybody kept telling me how I should feel, and I knew how I should feel. I had my expectations of what I should feel like, but I never had that I know that I can change this, and I
mhm.
know that I can take myself off of this hamster wheel. It's what it felt
Yeah,
like. I just felt like I was going round in circles constantly. And I sat there and I was like, I literally have everything. Like, what is going on?
it's like,
This is
but do
not
you
normal.
though? Like that's the thing, because you've got like the Facebook or like the social media, everything, right? Because you've got the photo of you there with your baby, you know, hashtag
Yeah,
blessed, so grateful,
yeah,
whatever. Or, you know, as long as mum and baby are healthy, you know, with no real caveat of what that means, you can be like crumbling inside, you know, falling apart physically and
yeah,
mentally. But it's like, it's cool because like you're healthy seemingly
yeah,
from a photo. But then it becomes this race to the bottom, right? That's
yeah,
what I was finding. Because anything you say, like if you dare to like disclose a little bit of that, it'd be, well, someone's had it worse.
mm,
Like we had it worse, or especially older women. Well, our
yeah,
experience was this: we had it worse,
yeah,
as per our like rose tinted whitewash glasses of 40 years ago plus, or whatever it was. But even other people now, oh well, I know someone who had it worse, or like for me, I daren't talk about my trauma or my experience because there will be mums out there who had the heartbreaking situation where they didn't get to take their baby home. But the fact that that trauma I had when we didn't know should kind of be written off because the outcome was
yeah,
positive.
yeah,
And, you know, of course we're pleased the outcome
yeah.
was positive, but it doesn't mean that you can't recognize that trauma. Like, why is motherhood such a race to the bottom of people who've had it like shittier than you?
Yeah, and I think the thing is we forget that everybody's trauma is different.
100%.
Everybody's experience of that situation is going to be different. And this is, this is where the social conditioning comes into
Mhm.
play, because we watch telly and the people that are around us and those influencing us, we believe that motherhood has to be a certain way. And if you feel anything outside of that, then you're wrong, or you're doing it wrong, or you've got it wrong, or you must be a bad person, or a terrible woman inside. No, I was a absolute, didn't realize this, but a huge control freak. Like, I literally needed to control the whole, every aspect of my life in any way I could. And when I became a mum, or I became pregnant, I couldn't control anything,
Yeah.
and it all got took out of my hands. And I went from being this successful career woman, knowing exactly who I was, what I was doing day in, day out, the people that I had around me respected it, like there was everything. And then I just went into this, like, it felt like this suit. Like, I mean, I put on 6 stone. I was unrecognizable. And if you look at the pictures of me that are on my social media of me when I came home, I'd been home like 2 days, and there's a picture of me holding my baby, and I'm literally dead behind the eyes. There's
Yeah.
nothing there. And I'm like,
You
I'm
see that though,
so
you're doing the
happy.
beautiful, like,
Yeah, I'm like, so happy. Really not. I can't feel my legs, can't
yeah,
feel my bits, my stomach sore. Do you know what I mean? And like, yay, it's so lovely. And it is. And we are lucky because we still have our babies. And, there are going to be people out there that are going to listen to this and be like, that's totally out of order. And
yeah,
that's fine too. That's totally fine. That's your perspective. But this is ours. And we know that this is going to resonate with so many mums out there to actually go, hold on, I hated every minute of it to begin with, T. I love being a mum now. She's nearly 5. There are times when I want to kill her, and there are times when I want to, I have the best time with her and the best conversations. But day to day, I love being a mum, but I also love being Emma. And it's okay to be Emma. And I have to make time for that. And I think that is what we're not taught. we're not taught that you still need to be you. You're going to go through this really, because whether you have a natural birth, whether you have an emergency C-section, a planned C-section, whatever it is, it's still trauma at its highest. And nobody, it's childbirth and it's all wonderful. It's not, it's trauma. It is a form of trauma that you are experiencing, you and your body.
Yeah.
And your experiences are your own, and you need to own them and be like, right, let's face this shit head on. There's a swear word came out. I knew one would. Let's face it head on. Let's understand it. How do I want to feel? You know, and that's when you get to go down the route of coming outside the other outside the other out the other side of it. You know, it's not, you don't have to remain stuck in that labyrinth, going round in circles, bashing your head against a brick wall. There is light at the end of the tunnel if you want it to be there. So I think we probably can end there, Jen.
I think so. I think that's a good end, isn't it?
Yeah. So join us for our next episode, and we hope to see you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Take care.